stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Newberry.
Here.
Crowner.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Hayes.
Lear.
None.
Here.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Movement and support. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. First item on our agenda will be reports. Oh, excuse me, a consent agenda. I really do have to enlarge that.
Motion to approve as presented. Support.
Motion and support. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. I don't know whether our administrator wants to say something at this point, or
I think I'll pass tonight. Thank you.
all right. You're quite welcome. Public Works.
Tower people finally showed back up. We're still working on the punch list. Been working with Boomerang and Schneider on that, trying to get things finished up so we can close. There's still some issues that I'm trying to get taken care of. Chase Williams passed his grade 1 wastewater, so now he's got a grade 1. I have 3 more that are going to be taken in class this week and next, and then they're already signed up right at the end of the month. They'll be trying to get their wastewater, and then their time between before they can take their second one, while they're waiting on time and experience and working on for the second one, they're going to go right into water. So pushing, trying to get that grade 1 water and sewer from both of them. So everybody's working on that and moving forward. That's about all I got.
Okay, thank you. Police, oh, hi.
Jesse's gone.
Okay,
We don't have anything tonight.
okay, thank you.
I just keep praying for warm weather. It takes care of those Thursday snowfalls.
Yeah.
Maybe this time it'll just be rain.
I'd settle for that.
Clerk, anything?
I will, you want to mention the coffee and conversation on the 21st at the bean counter from 8 till 10. For anybody that wants to stop out and talk to the council a little bit, ask questions, and just have a cup of coffee.
Okay. Finance? Nope. Nope, on IT. Okay, council reports then. Kathy?
Nothing tonight.
Okay, Andy?
Tomorrow is the West Burlington Business of the Year announcement. So a bunch of us are planning on meeting here at 11:15 in the morning, and we'll kind of go from here to the winner, who has not been announced yet. So that'll be a surprise at 11:30 tomorrow morning. All welcome to join us if you're available. I'm hoping fire and police both can be there if we don't have an emergency. Obviously, things can get out of hand, and we don't expect you there if that happens. But we're going to go serve a little treat somewhere, and press is invited as well, and I'll have the press release and everything ready to go. So excited for tomorrow.
Okay, John?
Not a whole lot, except I'll just follow up on Andy. I think that it's been a long time coming on having a year thing, and I hope that the fire department and the police department can show up, and the rest of the council, and we'll make this a big deal.
Okay, thank you. Therese?
I'll be there with bells on for tomorrow, and then next Tuesday morning at 8, I'll be there with one eye open. So, you know.
Donnie?
Dittos to what Therese said. I'll be there tomorrow, 11:15, and then Therese, we'll see you. Then I'll carry the conversation for the first hour with coffee and council while you wake up, okay?
Well, give me a good shot of caffeine.
Okay. And then I wanted to let you know I've got all the parade, the 4th of July parade invitations out to all of our elected officials, and a few people have called back, or at least inquired. So I'm confident the requests and the invitations went out, and just want to invite any citizens to get your floats ready for the 4th of July parade. That'll be at 4 p.m. on the 4th here in West Burlington. Thank you.
How time flies.
How time
Yes.
flies.
Flies.
Well, I have a confession on my email. My email was hacked somehow, and it went out, of course, the police department was very good to put out a bulletin on that also, but it started with a letter of support that I sent to the Lions Club, and somehow, I haven't figured out how they were able to use that to be able to send out these emails and so forth, but I understand that I will now have a certified signature on my email account, and if it comes through and that certified signature is not there, it didn't come from me.
Let's see.
So,
Still waiting for that check you said you'd send me, that email,
I
but
sent you my gift cards.
Yeah.
From Africa.
yeah, well, yeah. Anyway, we also did a letter of support, that one that's going to Representative Miller Meeks on some of the projects that we have in plans here. So we'll see whether there'll be any federal money that'll flow our way for these projects that we have. The Visioning Steering Committee met yesterday, and we have a meeting with the Department of Transportation this next Tuesday. We'll see whether we can sneak in a few things that we want to have done, not just getting what they're going to be doing, which is kind of the purpose of the meeting. So hopefully that will be productive for us and help move us forward with our visioning committee. So those are my items. We'll go to our citizen concerns. Okay. And seeing none, we will move on to first order of business, which is consider hiring Andrew Pryor and Justin Pryor as reserve police officers.
Motion to approve, both.
Support.
Motion and support. All in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. We need to approve a resolution setting a public hearing date for April the 5th at 6 p.m. to consider the city's budget for fiscal year 23-24.
Motion to approve April 5th as the hearing date.
Support.
Motion and support. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Number 3, a resolution authorizing installation of a street light at the intersection of Gear and West Mount Pleasant Street.
Motion approved.
Motion
Support.
approved. Motion and support. Any discussion on this?
Can you tell us anything about that?
I've had a couple people call and ask because it's so dark when they pull up, they say they can't see the painted lines across because the street lights are down by the traffic lights, and it is really dark there. So straight across
Is
on
a
the
pole.
south side of Mount Pleasant, there's a pole, and they're going to put a 20-foot boom out over Mount Pleasant to get the light over to that to help light that intersection up. I've had concerns with safety and pulling in and out of there, people coming up North Gear in the dark, so.
I'm just curious, how many people? I mean,
I've had a couple, but I've noticed myself when I come in that way it is very dark right there.
it is.
I'm surprised there was, I really thought there should have been one there before, but,
There actually used to be a light there, and the light's been removed.
there's not even a pole on that side of the intersection close enough for a light now, so I don't know what happened to the pole.
No, I mean, there was a light on that pole.
Oh, over on the other side?
On the
Oh,
other side,
I have no idea.
At one time.
Yeah.
And it's gone, so I'm just,
Would it save money if we put a floodlight on Johnny's house?
Guess it depends on what Johnny wants to charge us.
I think it's a good idea too, so.
Okay, no further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Consider the purchase of lounge chairs for the swimming pool from Kiefer Aquatics.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion and support.
Can you tell me, is that lounge chairs, all lounge chairs, is that one-seaters?
All lounge chairs.
Is there any kind of warranty on them? Do they last over 1 year? Or?
I think it's a 3-year warranty on them.
It doesn't cover vandalism, no doubt.
No, it's, I'm not, there's, I think it's
Probably
more
the
mechanics, yeah.
Well, I think they're needed.
Okay.
Question, what's our control of them? Do we have a plan to store them at the pool and a plan to?
There's really, I mean, they're just kind of bulky and hard to store, but in the winter, they can be stacked, and I think before we stacked them and put them in the.
Under the
bathhouse
awning,
or-
usually under the awning by where the concession is, we try and put stuff under there, any chairs or whatever we've had in the past.
We could probably take them to the street shop or something.
Sure.
They'll be lounging around.
Then you'll
out there.
complain when you come out and everybody's laying in one.
Put them in the trailer. Have to take them out.
Well, they
Oh,
could
no,
take
they'd
'em
already
in-
be out.
You could take them in the hallway of the bathhouse if you had. to.
Depends on their size and what they are when we get them.
Yeah.
We'll try and drag them into the bathhouses probably. In what trailer?
Stage. I'm not joking. You can put them in there.
That's not a bad idea.
The floor sits like this in here. I don't know how you're gonna stack
Oh,
chairs
it
in
folds
there.
up. I
It
see.
isn't flat in there when you open that up.
All right.
We could put them under the stage.
If you did
Are you
it
talking
just
about
right,
day-to-day,
you
like
could do it.
renting
Two,
them,
just
or-
two questions I have. One is, do we have a plan to, how we're gonna use them so they don't end up, I don't know, in the bottom of the pool or busted or thrown over the fence? So we account for the $6,000 investment we're gonna make.
They will end up in the pool.
And they will.
Storm comes by, we come in the morning, they're all below in the pool. So that's good practice for the lifeguards to go in and dig them out.
Save a drowning chair.
Yep.
There's no way to, again, stack them, take care of our investment, that's all I'm after. If we're gonna spend this money, and there's a reason, I guess, we haven't had them for the last several years. And I do
Guessing you
think
could
having them hopefully
require the
cause more
life,
people to
you could
come.
require the lifeguards to go around every evening and pick them up and stack them and put them under the awning part. I mean, that's all what you want to do with pool regulations.
That's what we used to do at Fun City. We'd stack those in the rafts before
At
we
the
shut
end of the
down
day,
every
right?
night.
Depending on how heavy they are.
Yeah.
It might be more damage to dragging them than just leaving them. I don't know, the weight.
I'm not sure the weight of them either, but have them.
I would think stacking them
It just
would
needs to be looked at, so we're taking care of what we're spending
Yeah.
our money on, so we'll have them for at least the 3 years of the warranty period.
You could leave them stacked and then rent them out and people bring them back and they're kind of responsible for them. I mean, you wouldn't even have to rent them for 5.
We'll have the pool staff come up with a plan.
Yeah, just, I guess,
to-
have the committee come up with a plan, so we use them responsibly. If it's,
Right.
you turn in your driver's license and you get a pool chair or whatever, I'm sure there's options. I just want to take care of our investment, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay, no further discussion, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, consider a quote from Basine Electric to install 3 reactors on the variable frequency drive at the South Lift Station. Oh, I remember this one.
Yeah, this is the second one that's got hit. We just got one warranted, and now, a few Saturdays ago when we were here for the Vision Committee, the south went down again and it took a hit. I've been working with Alliant and Mazine. They've been monitoring the power coming through at the transformer, and Alliant's been monitoring the power coming down the line from the hospital. They have installed what will protect us, already installed, and we're still having this issue. So I'm not sure, part of the south lift, these VFDs were that sensitive that this equipment probably should have been engineered by the engineer at the start when this was designed to protect these machines, but it wasn't, and we've found out the hard way. So at about 10 grand a whack when one goes out between labor and stuff, I think we need to put this in to protect the power spike and the power drops both. 2 of them, and when this one went down, the other 2, one had 22 hits and one had 25 hits. So they've been getting smacked with either a small drop in power or a surge in power. So Alliant's done everything they could on their end. So as of right now, they're still monitoring the meter and the power coming in, trying to see where the power drops. Both times this happens has been on Saturday morning. So I'm not sure what's causing it yet, and Alliant's can't come up with an answer exactly either, so.
So you're saying there's more draw than what the supply is?
No, there's a power drop. When it goes to kick in, there's not enough power, is what they're telling me.
Not enough
It's not a
supply.
spike, it's been a power drop. It's not giving it power, then it blows up the inside of the VFD. The last one was warranted, and I don't think we're gonna get this one warranted, so.
That's strange.
It's something that needs to be installed. We have VFDs at the at the west lift, and we have VFDs in the new tower. So I'm gonna have them going to them next. They're a different brand, different style. Maybe they're sturdier, but we're gonna check them and see if they show any faults or anything's been hit. Maybe coming back to you for some more protection on those at the same time so that we don't keep having this happen.
I should have had a motion before I started discussions.
Motion to approve the purchase.
Support.
Support, thank you. Any further discussion on this? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, number 6 is discuss and consider a resolution of support for a potential senior housing project. So we have our discussion here, and I believe we have someone who could probably speak to it better than I could.
Be happy to.
You can come up to the mic.
Your Honor,
Actually, the mic, that way it
Mike's
goes out
over there
on
if
the...
you-
Want to get a motion?
Oh, yes.
So move.
So move?
Support.
Okay, motion support, thank you.
Your Honor, this is Greg. I can't see us, and Chris Ailes is there.
Yes, he's at our microphone here on the main table there.
Excellent. I just wanted to introduce Chris. I've known Chris for, I don't know, 7, 8 years now. I've done a couple projects together, and Chris has brought a proposed senior housing project to West Burlington, and is very familiar with the tax credit process and has been successful previously on these projects. So with that, I just want to thank Chris for coming, and we'll turn it over to Chris to maybe do a quick rundown of the proposed project.
I'd be happy to. Thank you for that introduction.
And I think if you want
Thanks,
to
Chris.
lift that mic, you can do that. I think it's...
Yeah, posable, bendable.
Yeah.
Touch anything.
Yeah, you're good.
Well, first I'll introduce myself, Chris Ailes. I am a CPA by trade. I have grew up and lived in the Quad Cities for most of my life. I practiced as a CPA for about 20 years, and took that experience with the tax credit program, or with the tax knowledge, and my passion for real estate, and put the two together, kind of like a Reese's peanut butter cup. And lo and behold, I'm a tax credit developer now. I've been doing this for about 25 years. I've probably developed, I quit counting, so I can't tell you how many projects, but it's 20, 30 projects. And usually we'll stack different sources of funding to make a project work. The catalyst is the Affordable Housing Tax Credit that is a federal tax credit. It is funneled through the Iowa Finance Authority, a state agency. They submit annually, or publish annually, what's referred to as a qualified allocation plan. That is a set of rules by which they will allocate the credits for that particular year. And it just so happens that this year, the rules favor a project in West Burlington. The project that we're proposing is a 47-unit senior housing project. You can see up here on the screen a picture of the building that we would be proposing. This building was just finished in Monroe, Wisconsin, using the same program. It'll be a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. The hook, if you will, for receiving the tax credits is that we have to limit the residency to, and we choose seniors over the age of 55. We can either choose 62 or 55 under the 2 federal statutes. So it'll be 55 or over, and there are income and rent restrictions. But I want to quickly differentiate between the Section 42 program and the old Section 8 housing program, which when everybody hears about subsidized housing, they first think about Section 8, and in particular, project-based Section 8 housing. And I think maybe the most important thing I could tell you is that in my experience, it is not the source of funding that makes a project a good or bad project. It's the development team. And most importantly, from a long-term perspective, it's the ownership and the property management team. We've been doing this, as I mentioned, for over 25 years. I'm working on not to digress, but in full disclosure, I'm working on a project in Burlington. It too will score very favorably in this round. And because the program limits developers to one project a year this year, a gentleman that I normally partner with is going to be the developer and owner on this project. I'm here because I know Greg, I know the community, I'm working in Burlington, and I will be here throughout the project as the project manager, helping Jim Bergman. Jim owns probably 2,000 or 3,000 apartments under this program. He moved from Bettendorf to Des Moines. He uses, and I use, a property management company known as Pioneer Property Management Company. We partner with the owner of Brian, Fritz is his name, with the owner on a number of projects. So we've got a nice, firm, long-term relationship with Pioneer. And they do a great job. I'd be proud to take you to the very first project that I ever developed. It was in Muscatine. It's known as Cottage Grove. I developed it in 1999, and if you drove up to it today, you would never guess it's that old. It, in my opinion, refutes all of the myths about affordable housing. To that point, the Iowa Finance Authority put out devoted a section of their annual conference about 1.5 years ago talking about housing. And they've encouraged us as developers and they internally to rethink how we propose this kind of a project. It's housing. It's not low-income housing. It's not high-end luxury. It's housing. And the income restrictions will be at or below 60% of your area median income. Now, from a practical perspective, it will be between 40 and 60%. Because if you make less than 40% of the area median income, you probably can't afford our rents. So this is the middle section, if you will, 40 to 60% of the area median income. That's the area median income in your county. So this is your residence.
What is that part?
I can get back to you with that exact number, but it typically, our typical tenant is retired on Social Security, and they have a modest pension. They make $30,000, $35,000, maybe $40,000 a year, depending on whether there's 1 or 2 people in the apartment.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, you're fine. Yeah. You're fine. Please feel free to interrupt me with questions at any point. But that's our typical tenant. And I like to tell the story because I can go back to almost every project that I've ever developed and talk about a resident that is kind of the model typical resident that we try to serve. And there are a lot of them grew up and they were members of the country club and they were business owners and their husband got sick. He exhausted their resources on health care. He passed away and the attorney came to the spouse and said, you're going to need to sell your home and move into an affordable apartment. And that's just a fact of life, that women live longer than men. And I did a study a few years back, and it was somewhere around 80% of my residents fit that mold. They're single women. The majority of our residents are single women. Sometimes 2 women will live together, and that's why the incomes can be higher in that situation between the 2 of them. But that is our typical tenant. The project is funded with the affordable housing tax credit. That's the real catalyst. And in return for that tax credit, which we sell and use as equity to buy down the mortgage, that's how we keep the rents affordable. And I've given our rents, I think, to Kelly, and if I remember right, they range from like $350-ish up to $750-ish.
I think I passed that along to them on the.
So what I would consider affordable rents for 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. One of the benefits that we've seen over the years through this type of a program by focusing on senior housing is that it frees up your entry-level housing in the community. So you get 2 bangs for your buck. You serve the seniors that need housing, and you provide housing that isn't otherwise available for entry-level individuals. Back to the management of the property and the project. In addition to having worked with Pioneer Property Management, who has a good track record, and again, I'd encourage you to drive up to Muscatine and look at Cottage Grove on Hauser Street. That was my very first project, and I think you'd drive by that and think that's not 25 years old. And Jim Bergman, who will be the developer of record and owner of this project, has owned that property for many years. So that's an example of how he takes care of his properties with Pioneer Property Management. But on top of that relationship with the property management company, under this program, the Iowa Finance Authority is very strict on their inspections. I could go into all kinds of details about things that they've raised on inspection. Cracked sidewalks. They actually kept me from submitting an application one year because I had a cracked sidewalk on one of my properties. So they're serious about this. And they're a good watchdog for your community on top of the team that we have assembled. We will use a general contractor by the name of Door Creek Construction. They follow us around and are the contractor on most of our projects. The reason we do that is these programs that we use have a number of stringent criteria that apply to the construction as well as the future management. And it helps a lot having a general contractor who knows what those are. With that said, we always encourage the use of local subcontractors. It just, common sense tells you you can't compete having somebody drive from Des Moines to be an electrician on a project in West Burlington, as long as the folks in West Burlington are being competitive. And we have every reason to believe they will be. The funding for the project, it's, if I remember right, $11-12 million project. And a substantial portion of that is funded with the affordable housing tax credit. Wells Fargo has been our purchaser of the tax credits, and then our construction lender and permanent lender on many, many of our projects, and likely to be on this one. We will also layer on top of the housing tax credit what's referred to as a home loan, capital H-O-M-E. Those are federal funds that are awarded through HUD to the Iowa Finance Authority, and then the Iowa Finance Authority, through competitive application process, awards those to developers. It's a 1% loan with a long-term amortization on it. So you layer the affordable housing credit, which is equity, and you layer the home loan, which is a 1% loan, and then you put your conventional loan on top of it and our private equity. One last component that makes the project work, these are public-private partnerships, and you've got federal money, you've got state money, you've got private money, and we need some city assistance, and that's why I'm here today. My request of the council is a resolution of support, first and foremost. The last thing the Iowa Finance Authority wants to do is to award funds for a project in a community that doesn't want the project. So a letter of support sends that message that, yes, we've heard what Chris is proposing. It's what we want in our community. In addition to that, and that resolution of support needs, and I've given Kelly and Greg the language, needs to specifically address, it's a federal statute, that we will be using home funding. I mentioned that the application for these housing tax credits is a competitive program. They score our applications, and the scoring criteria change each year. One of those criteria awards a point, and you may think, well, 1 point. Out of all, there are 50, we're guessing between 50 and 52 points will be what gets awarded. So it's real tight. 1 point can make the difference. And one of those points is awarded for projects that are in a community that has a concerted community revitalization program. And I've talked a little bit with Kelly and Greg about that, and I think you have a program that we can kind of bootstrap and say meets that criteria. And if we can get comfortable with the language, we'd like to see that in the resolution as well. That would help with our application. And then finally, we need some financial assistance through tax increment financing. And our request is that you would provide us over the 15-year, I should go back, the project has a 15-year life. The affordable housing tax credit is claimed each year over 10 years. There's a recapture period that runs for another 5, and so it's a 15-year program. And we have to provide a 15-year pro forma to show how the project will cash flow on the rents that we're going to collect. So we're asking for a 15-year commitment on tax increment financing that would be 100% of the increment, which would be taxes you're not collecting today, but no more than 80% of what we actually pay. Again, in the keeping with this as a public-private partnership, there's something in it for the community. You're going to get right off the bat the extra 20% of taxes that we're paying, and then at the end of 15 years, you get the full boat for the life of the property.
Chris, can I interrupt?
Go ahead.
Thank you. And that's, I'm going to call it Chris's language. From a TIF perspective, it's slightly different. It reads more like a 15-year, 80%, 15-year TIF at 80% of the increment with a max is what's typically built in over that same time frame. That's how bond council typically words it in a TIF agreement. But
and we're fine. We're fine.
It gets to the. It's really just wordsmithing. But that's at the end of the day, it's basically a 15-year, 80% TIF with a maximum amount over that time frame.
So you're saying, Greg, for 20 or for 15 years, we'd get 20% more than what it's evaluated today at?
Well, actually, first there'll be the assessor will come in and assess the property, and the increment is generated over the difference in value. We take the base value from today and subtract that off of the new value once it's assessed by the county assessor, and you generate your increment. And so the city would be getting increment from day one, as well as obviously the developer, to meet that 15-year threshold or grant requirement.
So I'm a little bit confused. Are you saying 20% over the $12 million that's going to cost to build? Or are you saying 20% over the cost?
So
if I could,
I'm going to use
Greg, could I go through an example?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Hypothetically, let's say the property is assessed and paying $1,000 in taxes a year today. And let's say when we're finished that we pay $101,000 a year. So there's a $100,000 increment. 20 of that every year the city would keep. 80 of that would come back to the developer to help us keep these rents affordable. And then at the end of 15 years, you'd get the whole 100%.
Well, the reason that was important to me was because of the cost that it's going to give it.
And I believe, I used 100,000 because it's a round number. I think about half that is more normal.
Because usually in TIF, what we do is we we use the money until the project's paid, and then it goes into another fund. This is a little bit different.
Well, not exactly, because you always have to incur debt for a project.
Right.
In this case, though, those dollars will go straight into the city's general fund to support our overall general fund, rather than a specific project. The 80% would go to support this specific project, 20% to the city's general fund, and so the city will see an immediate benefit right off the top.
The one last point, during the Iowa Finance Authority's evaluation of our application, they'll underwrite the amount of tax credits that we receive. And so it's this balance between the federal money, the state money, the city money, and our money. And they'll make sure that they're not overly enriching us as a developer. We're taking the risk. We'll borrow the money and then pay it back in part with the TIF and in part with our rents. And I want to say that this projected cash flow from this project is less than $30,000 a year.
The 21.
Yeah. So it's, you make a little bit on each deal. You're not gonna retire on one deal. That's why I've been doing this for 25 years.
You said something that made me just a little bit nervous. I want to question. You said that for the first 15 years, that 80% helps you keep the rent low. What happens after those 15 years?
Good question. One of the scoring criteria is that we commit to keep the rents low for 30 years. So there will be it's called a land use restrictive agreement that we sign with the state of Iowa, the Iowa Finance Authority. It gets recorded locally and runs as a restrictive deed against that property. So that if we were to ever decide to sell the property, during 30 years, whoever buys it has to restrict the occupancy to seniors, has to restrict the rents as we've agreed to, has to restrict the income occupancy to what we've agreed to, and there are a number of other criteria on the operational side, amenities that we agree to provide, balconies, that kind of thing, have to be provided for a 30-year period.
And what happens if you don't have the clientele to fill your units?
That's on us. And that's a good question, and that's a distinction that I like to make. I started to earlier, and I got sidetracked in my thinking, but the old Section 8 program didn't work that way. You built it, and the government paid the rent, and you didn't have to worry as a developer and an owner. They've changed that with the Section 42 program, and I want to clarify, Section 8 was HUD, Section 42 is the Internal Revenue Code, not even the same law. And so, yes, we sit down with you, with the state, and our bank, and our tax credit investor. We all underwrite the transaction, and then at the end of the day, if it has negative cash flow, we cover the mortgage.
So I got one more question. You said something about 55 and 62.
Yes.
And you're choosing 55.
Yes.
Most people aren't retired at 55.
Correct.
So that means probably a couple is going to be in there. Why did you pick 55 over 62?
Selfishly. In my experience, people move in and they don't leave. So if we can get them while they're younger, we've got less turnover. It's that simple.
Makes sense.
And you're right about the age 55 to, I'm 62 and I'm not retired. So 55 to 65, you've got the working empty nester. I'll tell you, there are fewer of those that live in our properties than you'd think. The majority of our residents, again, that's why I did this analysis of our portfolio a few years back, 80% or more are the single women. Their husband has retired, passed away, and now they're retired. They're living on Social Security, they've got a modest pension, and they move in. Our typical tenant is closer to their late 60s, early 70s. no matter how much money, and I spent a lot of time and effort and money on my early projects, marketing to try to get that 55-year-old so I wouldn't have the turnover, and I found that I was just wasting money. And our typical tenant is more in the 60s, if you will, late 60s. Hope I answered your question.
Will you provide any amenities like some senior housing projects? They have like an area where they can have company come in, or is there like anything like that?
Community rooms, fitness rooms. We also provide, one of the things that we do that not all of our competition does, I go back 20-some years and tell you my very first project, I was probably one of few, if not the only, in the state of Iowa that not only put in the washer and dryer connections in the apartment, so they could have a washer and dryer in their own apartment instead of going down to the hall, but I actually provide the washer and dryer.
Yeah, I don't believe in community washer dryers.
And I'll tell you why I did that, and I guess it's another point to make. When I started this years ago, I set as my standard that I wanted to develop affordable housing that I'd be comfortable with my parents living in if they had to. Well, my parents ended up living in my properties. And Jim Bergman has his sister-in-law living in one of his properties, and I've got a brother-in-law living in one of my properties today, and my father-in-law lived in one, and my father lived in one. And my mother, I thought, would not want to walk down the hall with her dirty laundry. And so that's the reason, the simple reason that I put washers and dryers in. Now today, you'll see they give a point for that, and almost everybody does it. Mm-hmm. So we do have a washer and dryer in every apartment. But in addition to that, one of the things that we often find is that people have a quilt or something large that they need. And so we provide a large commercial-sized washer and dryer in the community space if they've got something that won't fit in their washer and dryer inside their apartment. In addition to that, almost everybody who moves into an apartment has more stuff than they can fit in their apartment. Oh. And so we provide a storage unit in the building so they can have, whether it's seasonal items or items they just couldn't part with, they can store them right there in the building. So yes, we do have a number of amenities that we're driven to do that because we're financially married to this project for 30 years. And so we want to make sure it's going to perform, and to do that, we provide those amenities.
So then you do have a fitness room?
Yes.
Okay.
Fitness room and a community room.
My friend over here, if she's not pedaling her hiney around town, she's running, so I got to make sure she's comfortable.
Well, thank you, I appreciate that, but it's not quite accurate, but okay.
Ron,
Well,
I think if you scroll through them, there are some other pictures, and if it's the same setup as that building with I think I saw one of like a community room.
Okay. Do I have to point it somewhere else there, maybe?
So while you're getting that, Ron, I noticed on your layouts, one, there says dining here. What's a dining area?
Yeah, that's I'd like to make sure that there's no misperception there. We do not provide any meals. We don't provide, it's not assisted living.
Okay.
It's independent living apartments. Mm-hmm. But we try to provide as many amenities as we can. And so that dining area is if you want to have your family over for Thanksgiving dinner, you can take them down to the dining room downstairs and use that right next to the community room and right next to the fitness room.
Kind of gathering space, type of community.
And what I found I live in one of my properties, and the residents will use those community spaces just to have coffee together. They'll have dinners and lunches and events and book club and poetry readings and music, you name it. So there are plenty of rooms and areas so that you can have multiple people doing multiple things.
Like a commons area.
Common areas, correct.
Is there on-site managers?
Yes, there'll be an on-site manager and an on-site maintenance person.
So 2 people?
Yeah, they won't live there. They may or may not live there. I say that, I don't mean to be evasive, but in my experience, you might find, you may have a space that's available for your manager to live on site, but the perfect manager comes along and they don't want to leave their house. well, then we're going to hire them, and they don't have to live there if they don't want to.
Well, go ahead.
In the information we got, there's specific rent rates listed, and will those won't stay, or do those change year over year, or do they stay the same for 15 years, or?
There are restrictions that are published annually, and it goes up each year, about like your Social Security goes
Like
up.
COLA, cost of living, you're
Yes.
allowed to assess a COLA or something on that, so it's tied to some federal guideline or some
Correct.
source, thank you.
Other questions? Discussion?
This will probably help easing our housing shortage for young couples that want to move out here, go to our schools, and be part of our community, because there's a lot of senior people living in their houses now, and it's kind of like a one person in a 3-bedroom house. You're like, not that I don't mind the quiet, but I mean, other people would probably love to go out there and be part of the little community out there, the free
We have
up
some
housing.
people who have had health issues, that it's very difficult for them to do anything with yard work or anything, too, so.
Your Honor,
Yes,
I like to think of Chris as a local developer. Chris may not live in West Burlington, but they own the property, they manage the property, they take care of the properties, and this project is clearly within our goals for the City Council to adopt it this past year, and as well as an identified need in the housing needs assessment that was recently completed, and we'll be having public presentations on. So, I just wanted to point those couple things out.
thank you. Go ahead, John.
Chris, I kind of ran you over the coast tonight, and from what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, and what I'm reading, and Greg's worked with you in the past, I would kind of welcome this project.
Thank you.
So.
Appreciate that.
Okay, well, unless there's more discussion, I'm going to call for a vote on this. I would like to, since it's a letter of support essentially saying we're going to do a TIF, I would like a roll call vote, please.
Crowner,
I must abstain due to conflict.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lees,
Aye.
Young,
Aye.
Newberry.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Very much.
Carries, thank you. Look forward to working with you.
Keep our fingers crossed. Timeline, I should share that with you before I leave. We will submit our application April 19th. Awards are made in July. And again, it's going to be within a point or two. I'm optimistic that we'll score competitively, or I wouldn't be spending all this time and effort. Assuming that we're successful, we would close with our lenders and our tax credit syndicators and the contractors and get our building permit in line over the winter and start construction next spring. Hopefully be done by the end of next year, and then occupancy in 2025.
Wow.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Chris.
Thank
Thanks
you.
again.
Let's see. Okay, with that being the last item of business, no citizen inquiries, I would take a motion for a closed session.
So moved.
Support.
Motion support, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We will go into closed session in just, say, 5 minutes.
Mary, yeah, can we take a 5-minute break?
Break.